Riku Sato hadn't meant to ask the question out loud. He was sitting on the floor of his cramped Shinjuku apartment. Lights off, curtains drawn, phone screen flickering against his face. When the words slipped out in a shaky whisper he wasn't prepared to hear. When did I stop being able to control my own mind? He froze the moment he said it. Not because it was dramatic, not because it was profound, but because it sounded like a confession, one he didn't remember choosing to make. Tokyo glowed outside his window. Neon signs, drifting exhaust, screens. Advertisements from buildings across the street flashed into his room in rhythmic pulses. Notifications lit his phone, one after another, like someone tapping his brain repeatedly with cold mechanical fingers. And Riku just stared. A 29-year-old project designer at a major tech company, high salary, respected team lead, always connected, loved the fast pace. At least that's what he told everyone. But the night he whispered that question to the dark, he couldn't stop his hands from shaking. He couldn't focus on reading a single paragraph. His thoughts darted around like sparrows trapped in a metal cage. His mind felt loud, too loud, the kind of loud that doesn't come from noise but from fracture. Something had been wrong long before this night. He knew that. But this moment, this was the first time the wrongness showed itself in a single naked sentence. When did I stop being able to control my own mind? It wasn't a question people in his world were supposed to ask. Everyone around him moved fast, worked fast, scrolled fast, lived fast. Losing focus was normal. Everyone joked about it. Everyone shrugged it off. But Riku didn't shrug anymore. Not after what happened a week earlier. The moment that shifted something inside him. The moment he hadn't fully admitted, even to himself. All he knew was this. He could no longer trust his own attention. And he didn't know why. As he sat there, trembling slightly in the silence, his phone buzzed again. Then again. Then again. He didn't pick it up. He didn't even look at it. He stared at the soft rectangular glow as if it were a wild animal waiting for the chance to bite him. And then, there was the other thing. The part he still hadn't explained even in his own mind. Every night for the past week, Riku heard the same melody. Soft, barely audible, a few drifting notes carried by wind. But he lived on the 18th floor. There was no wind up here. And no one, absolutely no one, played melodies like that in this part of Shinjuku. It made no sense. The melody wasn't loud, it wasn't scary, it wasn't even strange. It was ancient. Like something played by hands that had lived long before skyscrapers touched the sky. Riku didn't know why, but every time he heard it, his chest tightened, and every time it stopped, the silence felt wrong. He closed his eyes now, sitting in the dark, trying to breathe steadily. He wasn't thinking about work, not thinking about deadlines, not thinking about the 36 notifications on his phone or the 3 missed calls. He was thinking about the melody. He was thinking about the fact that it meant something. Something he hadn't yet remembered, something he could almost recall if he tried hard enough. A knock suddenly broke the silence. 3 slow taps on his door. Riku's eyes snapped open. No one visited him this late, not ever. He stood up reluctantly, pulse fluttering in his neck, and moved toward the door. The knocks came again. Soft, measured, like someone who wasn't in a hurry. He opened the door and stared. A slender old man stood in the hallway wearing a white kimono that didn't belong anywhere near a Tokyo apartment building at 11:47 p.m. His hair was silver, tied neatly at the back. His eyes, small, dark, observant, held the calm of still water. In his hands, he held something Riku hadn't seen since childhood, a bamboo tube wrapped in faded red twine. The old man bowed slightly. "Riku Sato," he said quietly, "you've begun hearing the melody again, haven't you?" Riku's throat tightened. There it was, the missing piece, the impossible implication. The breadcrumb that turned his confusion into a sharp, spiraling fear. Again? The old man knew something Riku didn't, something he had forgotten. And that single word, again, revealed a past Riku didn't remember having. The man held out the bamboo tube. "It is time," he said. "Your mind is calling to you, and the modern world cannot answer." Riku couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't understand. He simply stared at the bamboo tube as a strange, warm ache bloomed in his chest. A feeling like recognition, but twisted with fear. The old man's eyes softened. "You have lost control of your focus," he said. "And I have come to return to you an ancient method. Older than our distractions, older than our cities, older than even the name of this land." Riku swallowed hard. "How do you know me?" he whispered. The old man smiled gently. "Because," he said, "you asked the question." Riku blinked. "What question?" The old man stepped closer. "The question a person only asks when the mind has begun to fracture." His voice dropped to a whisper. "When did I stop being able to control my own mind?" Riku stumbled backward. The old man didn't break eye contact, and then, without waiting for an invitation, he stepped into the apartment, placing the bamboo tube gently on the low table. "The apps you rely on cannot help you," he said, "but the method inside this tube can." Riku stared at him, heart pounding. "What method?" he whispered. The old man smiled with something that looked like sorrow. "The oldest one," he said. "The one taught to those who must sharpen their mind until it becomes a blade." The old man placed his hand upon the bamboo tube. "Kansho Jutsu, the art of reclaiming the mind." Riku felt his breath catch in his throat. "And if you do not open it soon," the old man added softly, "you will lose the melody forever." He turned to leave. Riku called out impulsively, "Wait! Who are you?" The old man didn't turn around. "I am the one who taught you this method once," he said, "and now I have returned to teach you again." The hallway fell silent as he walked away. Riku locked the door with trembling fingers. Then he turned, staring at the bamboo tube on his table. His chest tightened. His mind buzzed with unanswered questions, but beneath all of it, beneath the confusion, fear, and disbelief, and something inside him whispered, "You already know what's inside, you just don't remember." Riku didn't touch the bamboo tube for almost 30 minutes. He just sat across from it in the dark, the dim glow of the city filtering weakly through his curtains, watching the faded red twine that wrapped it. The apartment was too quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against you, waiting for you to make the next move. He couldn't bring himself to open it. Not yet. Every instinct in him tugged in different directions: curiosity, fear, denial, recognition. But the strongest of them, the strangest of them, was the feeling that the tube was watching him. Not literally, not with eyes, but with memory. Like the object itself remembered something about him that he did not. He rubbed his face with both hands, trying to steady his breathing. The old man's words still circled in his head like slow-moving fish in murky water. "You've begun hearing the melody again." Again. But Riku had never heard anything like that before. Or had he? His fingers tightened in his hair. No, impossible. He would remember something like that. He would remember an old man in a kimono. He would remember being taught some ancient technique with a bamboo tube. Wouldn't he? He exhaled shakily and leaned back against the wall, staring upward at his ceiling. An uneven gray patch of concrete noise and faint shadows shaped by city light. His thoughts wouldn't settle. He needed to calm down, so he reached for habit, his phone. He unlocked it automatically, fingers moving with rehearsed muscle memory. Notifications flooded the screen instantly. 18 missed Slack messages, 3 urgent emails, group chat blowing up, another pipeline alert, 4 reminders from focus apps. Your attention is slipping. Prompt from a productivity tracker he didn't even remember installing. Social media mentions. Ads. More ads. His chest tightened. He wasn't reading any of it, just scanning, scrolling, faster, blood pressure rising, dopamine spikes firing like broken wiring. His mind wasn't calming. It was splintering, the exact opposite of what he needed. He threw the phone onto the couch, breathing hard. The sound of its impact echoed longer than it should have. His pulse felt offbeat. That's when he saw the notification he had missed earlier. A single message at the top of the lock screen. From unknown. 1 minute ago, no preview. His throat went dry. He unlocked the phone again with a trembling thumb and tapped the message. The thread opened. One message. No name, no profile picture, no history. Just a single line. Do not trust your memory. Riku's skin prickled. Before he could respond, before he could even react, another message appeared right beneath it. Open the tube. He stood up so fast he knocked his knee against the low table. Shit. The pain barely registered. His eyes darted around the room. He wasn't being watched. He couldn't be. This had to be a prank or a hack or one of his co-workers messing around. But no one knew about the tube. No one knew about the old man. No one knew about the melody. And then, the third message arrived. Your mind is not breaking, it is remembering. A cold wave washed down Riku's spine. His hands felt numb, his breath shallow. He typed back, "Who are you?" 3 dots appeared immediately. Typing, slow, deliberate. Then, the melody is a doorway, and it has opened again. Riku swallowed hard. He typed, "Stop. This isn't funny." No reply. He waited 10 seconds, 20, 30, nothing. Just silence. He blocked the number, whoever it was, and tossed the phone face down on the couch. He pressed both palms to his eyes until colors swirled in the darkness behind them. This wasn't normal. This wasn't explainable. This wasn't something his modern, rational brain could categorize. The melody, the old man, the tube, the texts. What was happening? He forced himself to breathe slowly through his nose. Calm down. Think. One thing at a time. He walked back to the bamboo tube, knees unsteady, hands reluctant, heart louder than his footsteps. He sat on the floor in front of it again, legs crossed. This time he didn't avoid it. This time he let himself look at it fully. It was old. Older than anything that had a right to end up in a Shinjuku apartment. The bamboo was faded to a pale tan, smooth but scarred with thin vertical lines like old wrinkles etched by time. The red twine had lost its color in uneven patches wound tightly in an intricate pattern that felt purposeful, like it meant something. There were markings carved into the bamboo, but they weren't words. More like strokes or cuts arranged in a sequence that almost looked rhythmic. Like the bamboo itself had been written with sound. He leaned closer. The marks weren't random. They echoed the melody he'd heard. His chest tightened. He didn't know how he knew that. He had no logical reason to know that. But he did. The realization made his breath hitch. He lifted the tube carefully. It was lighter than he expected. Too light, like it was hollow. He thumbed the red twine but didn't untie it yet. Ancient method, he whispered under his breath, trying to ground himself. Mind reclaiming, kansho jutsu. He didn't even know if the word was real. He didn't know if anything the old man said was real. But the tube in his hands felt real. His phone buzzed again on the couch. Riku froze. He didn't move. He waited for a second buzz. It didn't come. He swallowed hard and forced himself not to look. Another micro mystery. Another breadcrumb. Another question he wasn't ready to answer yet. He took one final shaky breath and slid his thumb under the first loop of twine. As he tugged, the knot loosened with surprising ease, like it had been waiting for him to pull it. The twine fell away. The bamboo tube warmed slightly in his hands. A faint scent drifted out, something earthy, woody, and strangely nostalgic. It hit him suddenly like a forgotten memory brushing against his cheek. He knew this smell. His eyes widened, his pulse spiked. He whispered, barely audible, "Why do I remember this?" He didn't have time to answer himself, because at that exact moment, a soft tap came from inside the tube. Not something falling, not something shifting, a tap, like knuckles on wood. Riku's breath caught. He leaned back instinctively, holding the tube away from his face. What the? Another tap, soft, measured, intentional, tap, tap. Like something inside the tube was knocking at him. He nearly dropped it. The tapping stopped. Silence swallowed the room whole. Riku stared at the tube, gripping it with white knuckles, heart pounding so hard it made his vision tremble. The tube gave one final soft noise, a hiss, a click, and the cap on one end loosened by itself. He flinched, nearly dropped it again, but somehow managed to hold on. He didn't open it. He couldn't. Not yet. A cold whisper seemed to echo through the back of his mind. "You have done this before." The room suddenly felt smaller, tighter, like the walls had leaned in to listen. The faint hum of the city outside seemed to fade. Riku looked down slowly at the tube in his shaking hands. He whispered to no one, "What is happening to me?" But the better question, the truer question, rose uninvited and uncomfortably in his mind. What did I forget? The tube didn't answer, of course. It just sat in his hands, silent and ancient, waiting. Riku inhaled once, deep, steady. Then his fingers tightened around the loosened cap. And with a single trembling motion, he opened it. The cap fell into Riku's palm with a hollow wooden clack. A faint wisp of dust drifted from the mouth of the tube, catching the city light in a slow golden swirl. For a moment, he didn't breathe. He felt like inhaling too sharply might disturb something sacred, something old and fragile, something that did not come from the world he currently lived in. Inside the tube, he expected papers, a scroll, instructions, maybe some relic. Instead, there was a strip of cloth, plain, gray, narrow, rolled tightly like a bandage. Riku blinked. That was it? He gently pinched the cloth and slid it out. It unfurled on its own, dropping lightly into his lap. It was smooth, not dusty or brittle or decayed. It felt new, as if it had been placed inside the tube minutes ago, not decades. Something about that felt impossible. He lifted it, letting the fabric slip through his fingers. The more he touched it, the stranger it felt. Not synthetic, not cotton. More like old, finely woven hemp. Soft with age, but strong. Unreasonably strong for something so thin. He noticed markings near one end. Ink strokes, rough, dark, uneven. He held it closer. They weren't words, they were patterns. Thin brush lines arranged in vertical rhythms. Familiar rhythms. His breath caught sharply. It was the same pattern carved into the bamboo, and the melody. It echoed in his head as he traced the strokes. He could hear it, clearly, cleanly, as if someone were playing it right next to him now. He closed his eyes. For the first time in days, the sound didn't frighten him, it soothed him. It wrapped around his thoughts, quieting everything else. The stress, the notifications, the chaos. All of it dimmed until only the melody remained. His heartbeat slowed, his breathing steadied, the cloth warmed in his hands, his mind felt aligned. He didn't notice he was smiling faintly until the moment shattered. Thud, a heavy impact from the other side of his apartment wall. Riku jolted upright. Another thud, this time lower, almost against the floorboards. Then silence. He stared at the wall, pulse quickening again. His neighbor was a quiet, middle-aged office lady who was rarely home. She didn't make noises like that. And even if she somehow did, the timing was too sharp, too direct, too close to the moment he touched the cloth. Riku stood slowly, careful not to make noise. His foot stepped onto his phone without him realizing until he felt the device shift beneath him. He froze. The phone screen lit up from the contact. 4 new messages. Unknown. His stomach twisted. He picked it up with shaking fingers and opened the thread. The messages read, "Do not turn around." Riku's breath stopped. He didn't move. Another message appeared. "The cloth has awakened your sense again." He felt cold sweat form along his spine. He glanced, only with his eyes, toward the wall where the sound had come from. The screen lit again. "They hear the shift," Riku typed shakily. "Who hears what? Stop texting me. Who are you?" 3 dots. Slow, slow. Then, "Open your window." Riku stared at the message. His window overlooked nothing but the night city, distant noise, and the neon clutter far below. He typed, "Why?" For a moment, no reply came. Then, "So you remember." Riku's jaw clenched. He set the phone down, his breathing uneven. Something about the cloth, no, not the cloth, the state of mind it unlocked was making him feel everything too sharply, too preciously. His instincts felt louder than logic. He walked toward the window, slowly, carefully, mind buzzing with tension. He pulled the curtain aside. The city glowed like a living organism. Traffic flowed like blood vessels. Screens blinked like scattered neurons. Tokyo's endless hum reached his ears, faint, distant, almost drowned beneath something else. That melody. Except, this time it wasn't in his head. Faint, soft, echoing from below. Someone was playing it. Riku's breath caught. He unlatched the window and pushed it open. Cool night air washed in, brushing against his face. The melody grew clearer. It wasn't a recording. It wasn't a hallucination. Someone was playing the same ancient tune he had just awakened inside the tube. He leaned farther out, and then he saw it. At the base of his apartment building, beneath the layers of neon light and parked scooters and convenience store glow, stood a lone figure. The old man, the one in the white kimono. He was standing perfectly still on the sidewalk, staring directly upward at Riku. But he wasn't the one playing the melody. The old man's hands were empty. The melody was coming from somewhere else, from the shadows behind him, from someone or something still hidden. Riku's pulse hammered against his ribs. The old man raised his right hand and pointed at Riku. Not threateningly, more like a teacher beckoning a student forward. The melody stopped. All at once, the sudden silence slammed against Riku's skull with disorienting force. He stumbled backward from the window, clutching the cloth instinctively as if it were some kind of lifeline. A new message buzzed on his phone. He didn't want to look. He didn't want to know, but he had to. He picked up the phone. The message displayed, "He found you faster than expected." Riku's throat tightened painfully. Another message came instantly. "You must not let him speak to you." Riku typed with trembling hands. "Who are you talking about? Who is he? What is going on?" The reply was instant. "He will take back what you've forgotten." Riku's breath hitched. His legs felt weak. Another message. "You must leave the apartment now. Take the cloth. Take the tube. Go." Riku froze, staring at the door. He couldn't hear anything outside, but that didn't comfort him. Then, a soft, deliberate shuffle sounded from the hallway outside. Riku's skin crawled. Someone was standing there, not knocking, not calling his name, just standing, waiting. The air in the apartment seemed to thicken, pressing against his lungs. His heart hammered painfully, and then knock, 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 slow, measured, deliberate, the same pattern as the tapping inside the tube. Riku grabbed the bamboo tube. He grabbed the cloth. He grabbed his jacket. Another knock. Not loud, not aggressive. Patient, too patient. Riku stepped backward toward the balcony without breaking eye contact with the door. Something inside him, the same instinct awakened by the cloth, whispered, "If he speaks, you will remember everything, and you will wish you hadn't." The knocking stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Riku swallowed hard and whispered to no one, "What did I forget?" "Who is he?" His phone buzzed again. One message. "You are not safe in the city anymore." Riku's chest tightened. He lifted the cloth to his forehead. Pure instinct, pure fear, pure need to protect his mind. And the moment it touched his skin, a memory slammed into him like a wave. Not a full memory, just an image, one fragment, sharp as a blade, an empty dojo, candlelight, a man standing behind him, a whisper at his ear. "Once you hear the melody, Riku, you must never let the Mind Eater find you." The memory vanished. Riku staggered, grabbing the windowsill for balance. Then, the doorknob began to turn. The doorknob turned slowly, deliberately, with a sound that seemed to echo inside Riku's chest. He froze. The bamboo tube clutched tightly against his torso. The gray cloth pressed against his forehead as if it could shield him from what waited beyond the door. The knocking had stopped. The doorknob had started. A subtle, sinister rhythm now filled the apartment. Anticipation, threat, and the weight of memory he could no longer access fully. Riku's instinct screamed, but he couldn't decide what was louder, the pounding of his heart, the memory fragment of the dojo, or the quiet hum of the city that now felt alien and cold. The doorknob paused, then slowly, almost reluctantly, it began to turn again. And that's when he remembered. Not the dojo, not the melody, not the cloth, but the warning, the Mind Eater. If this awakened your focus, hit like and don't forget to subscribe for more ancient secrets to master your mind. A term he didn't know he had known. A word from a memory buried so deep it should have been impossible to retrieve. Yet here it was, clear, audible, a whisper that seemed to vibrate along his nerves. The Mind Eater finds the distracted, the unfocused, the lost. It returns what you've hidden from yourself, but it takes more than it gives. The doorknob turned fully. The door creaked. Riku stepped back. The tube slipped slightly in his grasp. The cloth fell to his knees. And through the opening came, not a man, not an intruder, a shadow. It moved with unnatural silence, a presence that seemed to shift the very air around it. It didn't breathe. It merely was, and it filled the apartment with the pressure of every missed focus, every lost memory, every tiny distraction he had accumulated over his life. Riku stumbled, almost dropping the tube. He remembered the old man's words, now crystal clear. Kansho Jutsu is not just a method, it is a shield for the mind. You have heard the melody again. You must awaken fully, or it will claim what you cannot protect. The shadow moved closer. With every step, Riku's memories flickered in painful, disjointed flashes. Childhood afternoons spent trying to concentrate on homework while chaos surrounded him. Teenage nights of scrolling endlessly. Adult years of endless notifications, calls, apps, meetings. His focus devoured piece by piece. He realized the melody, the cloth, the bamboo tube, everything the old man had given him wasn't just a tool, it was a lifeline, a key, a weapon against this thing. He took a deep breath, focusing, really focusing, something he hadn't done in years. The melody inside his head began to resonate with the rhythm of his breath. He could feel it syncing with the patterns on the cloth. Each line, each stroke, each sound seemed to pulse with his heartbeat. The shadow froze. It hissed, not a sound but a feeling, like the cold scrape of air against bone. Riku realized the truth. The Mind Eater didn't come to physically harm, it came to claim his attention, his memories, his sense of self. And it had almost succeeded. Riku's hands trembled, but he gripped the cloth and tube tighter. He focused on the sound, letting it guide him. Slowly, the fear began to shift. The panic unraveled into something else, a sharp clarity. He remembered the full ritual the old man had hinted at but never explained fully, the proper use of the Kansho Jutsu. 1. Anchor your senses, touch the cloth, feel the bamboo, hear the melody. 2. Segregate the distractions. Let the city fade, the phone notifications vanish, the intruding thoughts scatter. 3. Engage memory deliberately, summon the image of the dojo, the flickering candle, the teacher's voice. 4. Confront the shadow, not with fear, but with awareness. Recognition. The shadow moved closer again. Riku's pulse quickened. His mind screamed to flee, but something inside whispered, "You are not lost. You have not forgotten. You are remembering." Riku lifted the tube, placed the end of the cloth against his forehead, and whispered the melody aloud. The sound was shaky, half forgotten, but it resonated. It rippled outward, brushing the edges of the shadow. The room shifted. The shadow recoiled. Fingers of darkness stretched and twitched as if the melody burned it, pushed it back. Riku's heart pounded. The rhythm of his breath and the sound of the melody aligned. Each note, each vibration, each thought became a tether to his consciousness, pulling him back from the abyss. He realized in that moment that the Mind Eater was not invincible. It thrived only where focus was broken, where attention was scattered, where people let themselves slip into distraction and fragmentation. Riku's fear turned to a sharp, lucid determination. The shadow shrieked, not a sound, but a pressure against his skull, and then began to dissolve, peeling away like smoke in the wind. When it fully vanished, Riku collapsed to his knees, exhausted but alive. The city's hum returned. The neon lights outside glowed again. Notifications buzzed, but they were muted, background noise now. And in the quiet aftermath, Riku finally understood. The ancient method wasn't just about focus, it was about reclaiming himself. It was about standing between the world and the part of him that would be consumed if he lost control. And most importantly, it was about remembering. The memory of the dojo, the candlelight, the teacher's warning, it all came flooding back, clear now. The Mind Eater could take nothing from him if he refused to let it. But he also realized something darker. He wasn't done. It wasn't over. And Tokyo, with all its lights, its chaos, its endless distractions, was no longer a neutral space. It was a battlefield, and he was the front line. The morning in Shinjuku arrived with a haze of neon bleed and traffic hum, but Riku barely noticed. His apartment, once suffocating with clutter and the hum of endless notifications, felt alive, focused, breathing. He sat cross-legged on the floor, the bamboo tube before him, the cloth wrapped loosely around his wrist. The melody hummed softly in his head, not imposed, not forced, but arising naturally, as though it had been waiting for him all along. He had survived the Mind Eater's first approach, but he knew instinctively it would return. Tokyo was an endless web of distraction, a hive of attention vampires, notifications, noise, ads, conversations, obligations. Every step outside would be a battle, every glance a potential trap for the Mind Eater to reach him. He closed his eyes and recalled the instructions the old man had whispered in fragments. Anchor your senses, segregate distractions, engage memory deliberately, confront the shadow. Simple in theory, devastatingly difficult in practice. Riku opened his eyes. The city outside his window was alive with motion, trains rattling, people rushing, screens blinking. Every element that once made him anxious now became a test. He had to move. He left his apartment quietly, tube and cloth in hand. The street felt alive, the pulse of Tokyo thrumming beneath his feet. Every billboard, every neon light, every passing face was an invitation to distraction. His instincts screamed to look, to check his phone, to react, but he ignored it all. The melody guided him, step by step, breath by breath, thought by thought. For the first time in years, he felt present, not engaged in apps, deadlines, messages, or meaningless scrolling. Present in a way that was unfamiliar and terrifyingly precise. A subway train roared past. His phone buzzed somewhere in his pocket. He ignored both. The cloth on his wrist pulsed lightly. Not literally, but the sensation was there. Warmth, connection, a tether to something older than the city, older than the chaos. As he walked, flashes of memory returned in fragments. Childhood mornings trying to read in a sunlit room, his mind jumping from page to page, learning to force attention. Teenage nights, headphones on, trying to concentrate while family noise swirled around him. Early work days, screens open, deadlines piling, meditation apps failing to calm him. The cloth and the tube seemed to stitch these fragments together, connecting the broken parts of his focus across time, and beneath it all, the memory of the dojo. Candlelight flickering, the teacher's gaze calm, the whispered warning. Once you hear the melody, you must never let the Mind Eater find you. Riku descended into the subway station, the familiar chaos amplified underground, announcements, footsteps, chatter, the screech of brakes. He felt the pull to disengage, to check his phone, to answer the message from an unknown number, to let the world claim his attention again. Instead, he closed his eyes briefly, pressed the cloth to his forehead, and let the melody resonate. The subway crowd blurred, not because he ignored it, but because he focused internally, letting external chaos pass without claiming him. The Mind Eater, if it existed, could feel the tether snapping, its reach failing. Suddenly, from the crowd, a shadow flickered at the corner of his vision. Not a person, not entirely. A dark ripple moving against the natural flow of commuters. His pulse quickened, but he didn't panic. He exhaled, engaged the bamboo tube, and whispered the melody aloud, letting it vibrate through the air. The shadow faltered, recoiling slightly. A sensation like pressure against his mind pushed back, testing him. But he did not break. Step by step, Riku moved through the crowd, his awareness sharpened, his internal rhythm aligned with the melody. For the first time in years, the city didn't feel like a trap. It felt like a temple. Every movement, every sound, every heartbeat became a ritual. The Mind Eater, whatever it was, could no longer reach him here. Not yet. Riku understood something essential in that moment. The melody, the cloth, the bamboo tube. They were not tools for productivity in the modern sense. They were weapons of presence. Focus was not a habit. It was a shield, a lifeline, a way to reclaim the fractured parts of himself that the chaos had stolen. He felt something else rising. A spark of defiance, raw and human. If the Mind Eater returned, he would meet it with awareness, not fear. But there was another truth, heavier than the first. The Mind Eater didn't just exist outside him. It had lived in the parts of him he had ignored for years. The the distraction, the endless multitasking, the fractured attention. Riku's journey was not simply about surviving the city. It was about confronting himself piece by piece, memory by memory, distraction by distraction. And somewhere in the neon-lit chaos of Tokyo, he felt the first pulse of hope, that he might finally reclaim what was once lost, and perhaps prevent the Mind-Eater from ever taking it again. The city never stopped. Even at midnight, the neon glared, trains rattled, and notifications pulsed in every pocket. Riku felt it in his bones now. The rhythm of Tokyo was alive, chaotic, endless. And within that chaos, the Mind-Eater prowled, seeking the distracted, the unmoored, the unanchored. But Riku had begun to understand something essential. The ancient method was not just a ritual for isolation. It was a weapon he could wield in the midst of chaos. He gripped the bamboo tube tightly in one hand, wrapped the cloth around his wrist with the other, and walked into the night like a monk moving through a battlefield. Every step was deliberate, every breath measured, every glance calculated. Riku descended again into the subway, a different line this time. The hum of fluorescent lights overhead, the screech of brakes, the chatter of commuters. It was overwhelming, the perfect environment for the Mind-Eater to strike. A surge of panic rose as it always did, triggered by a stray message alert or the flash of a screen across the platform. He pressed the cloth to his forehead. He hummed the melody under his breath. A wave of focus washed over him. Noise became background, motion became rhythm. The chaos became a temple. The Mind-Eater lurked, invisible, patient. It tested him at every turn, tugging at his attention, whispering memories he had buried. But each tug was met with deliberate resistance. Riku realized he could feel it react to him, like a predator sensing hesitation. Every moment of distraction would give it purchase. Every moment of focus denied it strength. On the train, a commuter's phone blared a loud ringtone. The vibration rattled across the floor. The natural reaction. Glance at the screen. Check your own notifications. Feel the pull of distraction. Riku's hand gripped the tube. He let the cloth brush lightly across his skin. He hummed the melody again. The pull of the distraction faded. The commuter's chaos passed through him like water through a sieve. He remained anchored, present, untouched. The Mind-Eater recoiled slightly. Riku could feel its presence, subtle, a pressure behind his mind, testing the strength of his will. As he exited the subway, the streets were quieter, but he felt the pull again. Stronger this time. The shadow, not fully formed, not entirely visible, but moving at the edge of perception, twisting in alleyways, darting behind streetlights, testing his focus, probing for weaknesses. Riku stopped. He closed his eyes. He breathed. The cloth on his wrist warmed, pulsing with a rhythm that aligned with the melody in his mind. He began to speak the melody aloud, low at first, then louder, letting the vibration fill the space around him. The shadow hesitated. It recoiled, twisted unnaturally, then shifted again. It was smarter now, more patient, more insidious. Riku understood. The Mind-Eater learned, and so must he. He realized that focus alone would not be enough. The ancient method demanded internal alignment. He recalled the dojo, the candle flickering, the floorboards creaking, the old man's voice steady, calm, unwavering. He drew that image fully into his mind. The cloth against his wrist pulsed. The bamboo tube rested against his palm. The melody flowed from memory, voice, and vibration simultaneously. The shadow wavered. It hissed. It shrieked, not in sound, but in the pressure on his consciousness. And Riku realized the truth. The Mind-Eater thrived on fragmentation, on the unaligned, on the distracted mind. He was no longer fragmented, no longer scattered, no longer prey. For the first time, Riku could see it, not fully but partially. The Mind-Eater was a mirror of his own failures. Every distraction, every missed focus, every abandoned intention made manifest. And yet with the melody, the cloth, and the bamboo tube, he could hold the line. The city became a living dojo. Every notification, every pedestrian, every flickering screen became a test, a ritual, an opportunity to anchor. He could feel mastery beginning to grow, not total, not permanent, but real. And in that moment, he knew the battle was not against the mind-eater alone. It was against all the ways modern life had fractured him. Against the 1,000 tiny distractions that had chipped away at his focus, attention, and memory for decades. And this was the battlefield he had to walk every day. Riku sat cross-legged on the rooftop of his building, the city stretching in every direction beneath him like a living map of chaos. Neon rivers flowed through concrete canyons, distant horns and chatter created a constant rhythm. But tonight it felt distant, almost irrelevant. He held the bamboo tube in one hand, the gray cloth wrapped loosely around his wrist. The melody pulsed faintly in his mind, no longer a command, no longer a threat. It was a companion, a steady current that tethered him to the present. For the first time, he understood something fundamental. The melody wasn't just sound. The cloth wasn't just fabric. The tube wasn't just an object. They were extensions of his own consciousness, a way to reclaim focus, attention, and memory from the endless distractions of modern life. He closed his eyes. The city's chaos continued around him, but within the space of his mind there was clarity. Every notification, every distant siren, every flicker of light became neutral. They were no longer triggers for panic or distraction. They were part of the rhythm of the world, background noise that could exist without consuming him. Riku breathed deeply. He let the melody vibrate through him, syncing with his heartbeat. And with each pulse, he felt his fragmented memories stitched together. The dojo, the teacher, the warning, the mind-eater. Everything aligned in a strange, perfect harmony. For the first time, he didn't feel broken. He felt whole. He remembered the shadow that had stalked him, the mind-eater that thrived on distraction and fragmented focus. It was still out there, of course. It would always be present as long as the world demanded attention faster than a human could give it. But now, he realized its purpose wasn't punishment. It wasn't malevolence. It was a mirror, a reflection of his own scattered self. Every notification he ignored, every moment of presence he embraced, every fragment of attention he reclaimed weakened the shadow. And for the first time, he understood. The battle was not with an external enemy. It was with himself, his own fragmented consciousness, his own divided attention. The tools the old man had given him, the tube, the cloth, the melody, were not magic. They were practice in reclaiming his mind, step by step, breath by breath. Riku lifted the cloth to his forehead once more, letting it brush against his skin. The melody hummed internally, a soft, warm vibration that filled every corner of his awareness. He felt something shift, not like an explosion of insight, but like a door opening inside him. A space that had been closed, cluttered, and lost for decades now breathed freely. All the fear, the anxiety, the compulsions to check notifications, the scattered thoughts, they were still there. But he no longer feared them. He no longer obeyed them. He observed them. And in observing, he reclaimed them. He smiled softly, not triumphantly, not arrogantly, just quietly. For the first time in years, he felt safe in his own mind. Riku whispered aloud, though no one was listening. This is not just focus. This is life. This is presence. This is remembering who I am before the chaos took over. He realized the profound irony. Modern apps, endless notifications, productivity tools, they all promised control. But control without presence is hollow. The ancient method, however, did not promise control. It promised awareness, connection, anchoring. It promised the ability to reclaim the mind from the chaos, rather than bending the chaos to your will. And Riku understood finally why the old man had sent him the bamboo tube and the cloth, not to escape the world, but to exist fully within it, without letting it consume him. The city continued below, alive and indifferent. Trains rattled, people shouted, lights flickered, but Riku remained calm, centered, awake. The melody hummed faintly in his mind, a pulse, a reminder, a friend. The cloth rested on his wrist, warm. The bamboo tube on his lap, smooth and ancient. He exhaled slowly, letting the tension of weeks, months, years wash away. And in the quiet, he whispered, "I am here. I remember, I am present." For now, that was enough. He did not know what the Mind Eater would do next. He did not know what distractions tomorrow would bring. But he had learned the method. And in that, he had reclaimed himself. The city was still chaos, but Riku was no longer lost within it. The city never stopped. Lights blinked, cars honked, screens glowed. Life surged endlessly around Riku, but for the first time he could watch it without being pulled in. He had walked through chaos, faced a shadow of distraction that nearly consumed him, and returned, aware, anchored, present. Riku sat on the rooftop, the bamboo tube resting beside him. The gray cloth lay across his knees, warm and alive in his hands. The melody hummed softly in his mind, no longer a command, no longer a threat. It was simply there, like the rhythm of his heartbeat, like the pulse of the city itself. He thought of the old man in the kimono who had sent him this path with no instructions, only fragments, only trust in the method. The lesson was not in escaping the world, it was in standing fully within it, in reclaiming his attention, his memory, his mind, his life. The tools were simple, a melody, a cloth, a tube. Yet through them he had done what no modern app, no algorithm, no productivity hack could do. He had found presence, and presence, he realized, was the truest form of control. Riku stared at the endless lights. The hum of the city pulsed beneath him, and he knew this was only the beginning. The Mind Eater, the shadow of distraction, would return. The chaos of life would test him endlessly, and yet, he no longer feared it. He understood now. It was not about defeating distraction completely. It was about choosing awareness every single time it appeared, a lifetime practice, a daily ritual. And he wondered quietly, how many people move through life with their attention stolen, their memories fragmented, never reclaiming the part of themselves lost to noise, chaos, or endless distraction? The thought lingered, heavy and real. Riku breathed slowly, letting the warmth of the cloth, the weight of the tube, and the melody fill every corner of his awareness. He felt his heartbeat synchronize with the rhythm of the city, not against it, but within it. The lesson was simple and terrifying in its truth. Life would always be chaotic. Distraction would always be present. The mind would always be tested. But through presence, through practice, through the ancient method, it could also be reclaimed. Riku closed his eyes. He let the city move around him. He let himself move within it. And in the quiet aftermath, he felt something he hadn't in years. Calm, clarity, and the simple certainty of being fully alive. For now, that was enough. The melody hummed, the cloth rested, the tube waited, and Riku was ready.